Coming up next on Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable, the governor signs what he describes as a bipartisan and balanced budget. And with the budget a done deal, how long will the legislative session continue? Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining us tonight, Mike Sunnix of the Phoenix Business Journal, Howard Fisher of Capital Media Services, and Bob Christie of the Associated Press. Governor Ducey signs a budget and proclaims that the state is now on a 3-year path to balance. This is a bipartisan, balanced budget according to the governor. Is it bipartisan? Is it balanced?
Well, it had one Democratic vote, Carlisle Begay, and you had a few Republicans oppose it. It was, what, $9.1 billion? A lot of cuts for universities. K-12 saw some cuts. They rated $220 million, including the Commerce Authority. Community colleges in Maricopa County and Pima took some cuts. Kind of an austere measure. Ducey kind of touted himself as a Scott Walker of the West. Well, this budget kind of lives up there. It's very austere. So you have a lot of folks from the education community kind of upset with that.
Again, the question, is it bipartisan? Is it balanced?
Well, balanced is, constitutionally it's balanced because we've got income and we have outflow. Now that income includes rating funds, a little creative bookkeeping, a few things like that. Structurally speaking, it's about, I think, 250 million más o menos in the red. We're spending 250 million more than we're taking in, but it's balanced officially. Now, bipartisan, as Mike pointed out, they bought a vote. They went to Carlisle Begay and said, we don't have enough Republicans in the Senate. Tell you what, we got some money for some roads on the Navajo reservation. We got some money for community colleges on reservations. And by the way, you also have this other bill going through that deals with empowerment scholarship accounts. Wouldn't you like those to all happen?
Right. It's not bipartisan, and I mean, that's pure spin. And I think that's clear to everybody. There was 3 times as many Republicans who voted against the budget as Democrats who voted for it. So it won. As far as whether it's balanced or not, yes, technically it's balanced. We're on a road to a structural balance by the fiscal year 2017 budget, although hidden in there is still a $900 million delay in school funding, which they've used for about several years now. What they do is they delay the last year's payment for a month. And so there's still $1 billion almost structurally out of balance, even when they fix the whole thing.
It's a very conservative budget. I mean, it's one of the most conservative budgets we've had in a very long time here. Lots of cuts, tax cuts for businesses, kept in place. Just a very austere budget.
But this is the more interesting part, and it gets to the issue of tax cuts. Here's the governor admitting we've had to make cuts. We cut $99 million from the state universities. Which basically at one point we were supporting state universities to the tune of $1 billion a year. We're now down to $669 million in state funds, even as enrollment has grown. I talked to the governor the other day. I said, so are you willing to say maybe we shouldn't do any more tax cuts? Oh no, I'm going to sign a bill to index, which loses us $15 million a year in the second budget year. He wants to push through other tax cuts. He is so married to the Laffer curve. And at what point does the idea that somehow you lower the marginal tax rates and we get more money? Well, at some point, if we keep lowering the tax rate to 0, are we infinitely wealthy?
Well, the governor has repeatedly said this. He says, listen, this is what I campaigned on. And if we all remember what he campaigned on is to drive the tax rate as close to 0 as possible. He wants to shrink government. I mean, one of the first things he did when he entered office was freeze hiring for the state. We haven't seen any direct result out of that, but that is scored in the budget at several $1 million this year and much more next year. We're seeing some incremental tax cuts. He would probably, I can speak for him probably here and say he would love to see more tax cuts.
And that becomes the problem. See, what do we want from government? This is the problem, is we keep talking about we want lower taxes. Do you want a university system? The Constitution says, A, you'll have a state university system, and B, that tuition shall be as nearly free as possible. Now, I recognize that that's vague. Do you want community colleges? Do you want K-12, or are we just going to privatize everything?
But when you talk about tax cuts, and he talks about tax cuts, okay, I'm cutting taxes, but tuition and fees increase. But community colleges, maybe not now, but in the near future have to increase property taxes. What are we talking about here?
Well, this is a shift, and you're seeing this in various small bills through the legislature as well, where they are pushing, they can't cut state funding, so they try to shift to the county. We are already seeing some school districts, Apache Junction, I believe Peoria is considering going to a 4-day school day. Pima County Community College raised their tuition last night.
But
$5 a unit.
And it goes beyond that, and that's not just in question of fees. I'll give you a perfect example. The state has a presidential preference primary. The state is supposed to pick up the cost for the parties. Why the parties don't pay for it is a whole nother debate. Well, they passed a bill saying the state will pay $1.25 per registered voter. Well, the real cost is nearing $3 or $4. Guess who has to bear that? The counties. And the counties can't say we're not going to do a primary.
To Bob's point, he campaigned on this. He was for getting the taxes to close to zero. There was other alternatives out there for people to vote for in the Republican primary. Scott Smith was there, much more moderate, wouldn't have taken this type of budget. Obviously, Fred Duvall, the Democrat, and Ducey won pretty easily, both the primary, a crowded primary, and the general election by wider margins. So he had a bit of a mandate to do this, and he's got a compadre down there in the Senate president who's even more conservative, and it was a main driver of this.
There was a thought, though, that, okay, once the governor actually becomes governor, and he realizes, okay, I've got $9.1 billion, $3 billion of it's got to go to K-12 schools, $700 million of it has to go to universities, 1 point some odd million has to go to corrections. I mean, that eats up that $9 billion pretty fast, and you're stuck in saying, what do you cut?
Well, and I think that was an argument with Governor Brewer. When she was not a governor, she kind of held certain conservative beliefs. Once she got into office, the caucus of one, the governor starts to see that she's everyone's representative, and she's changed some of her tunes.
Well, she was always, even in the legislature, she was always a bit of a pragmatist, particularly on terms of social issues. You know, you look at her and you look at the question, for example, when we were $3 billion in the hole, there were people, the Andy Biggses of the world, saying, we'll just cut $3 billion out of a $10 billion budget. Well, the governor said, no, we'll cut $1 billion, we'll borrow $1 billion, and we'll ask the voters to go ahead and raise about $1 billion a year with a temporary sales tax. And she won. And this is the same governor who said on Medicaid, look, there's free federal money out here to fund the people that the voters said in 2004 we should care for.
The difference between her and the current governor is she was a professional politician. He's from the private sector. And a lot of folks in the private sector think the way that Arizona is successful is to grow. Bring more people here, bring more jobs here. And so they're tied into those tax cuts as competing with Texas and Nevada. And so that's their mindset, much more than Brewer, who's been down there and done more budgets. And so this is his first budget.
But the problem is it hasn't worked. We have gone from 35th to 41st in per capita income during the years when Jan was there, during the years when we approved all the tax cuts.
If you talk to the business folks during this thing, their main priority was to keep those tax cuts. You didn't see them squawking too much about ASU and the universities, but that was their main priority. Now, that's where they're coming from. That's their mindset.
But look at and even the jobs being created. Department of Administration said 71% of the jobs being created in the next 2 years will require a high school diploma or less. These are the kind of, I won't use the word jobs, that are being created. This is the success. This is what the tax cuts have wrought. Really?
They're going to stick with it. He's been committed to that. He wants to have more tax cuts.
And to that point, the other side argues very quickly and very succinctly, so you want to balance the budget on the backs of taxpayers, huh?
Well, the issues are the governor can't raise revenue. There was one small bit of revenue increase here, a doubling of the vehicle license fee, which currently is $8 and would go to approximately $16. It would raise maybe $25 million, $30 million. There's so many numbers in my head I can't remember. The Biggs, President Biggs, the conservatives in the legislature refused to even consider that. And so if they can't even get that small tax increase through or a fee increase, they're not going to get any revenue increase. And there are, what surprised me about this budget is I thought there would be more of the pragmatists among the Republicans who would block it.
What happened there? Because last Friday we thought this could go on for weeks. There were so many holdouts, especially in the House, but the Senate, what happened?
Well, they picked them off one by one. There was no cohesion among the group. There was 5 solid votes against the budget among the Republicans on Thursday, and one Democrat who everybody thought was going to vote for it. So it means you needed to get 4 people. they picked them off one by one with little buy-offs. Essentially, they get PMIC. Okay, we'll take care of the Pinal County guys. We'll give them we'll exclude their county from the community college cut. We'll deal with the education crowd by giving them a little bit of flexibility in the cuts to school support services so that the school districts can mess with it. We'll take care of the university supporters by saying, okay, well, we won't take $104 million out of your budget. We'll only take $99 million out of it.
Which is still 20 some odd more than the governor wanted.
Exactly, and it's pennies on the budget, on the dollar for what the folks, if they could have been cohesive and if they could have said, we're going to stick together, we're not going to move on this until
You don't
we
even
really
have
have
that down there
and that
anymore.
goes to Bob Thorpe. Bob Thorpe puts out a press release with Brenda Barton right before the budget, signed also by the president of Northern Arizona University. This is an unacceptable budget. I can't accept it. Then, oh, well, we did the best we could. And I said to him, literally, I said, what do you mean you did the best you could? You could have told leadership, no, you're not going to
Yes,
vote for it.
exactly.
You could have said that.
Exactly.
And he basically, well, I don't know. And so when push came to shove, and they took them into the leadership office and shot them one by one, that's what it came to.
Yeah, or took them up to the governor's office and cut these deals. And it's frustrating to watch sometimes because that they say these things, that they're against this budget, they don't like these cuts, and they don't like it across the board. But if you can just give me what I want, then I'm okay.
Let's talk about the process. Appropriations committees, subcommittees. I mean, we used to be able to hear a little bit about this. You knew the horse trading going on. You could kind of see the MAC. We don't see any of this anymore.
No, it's all behind closed doors. It's all last minute. The rank and file don't get a long time to look at these things, let alone the public and hearings. That gives more cohesion to these types of things. It allows the Senate president and the governor and the speaker, maybe to a lesser extent, to form something and rally the votes to keep this. If this was out here with a process and having people step forward and talk about the cuts that are going on and the wisdom of tax cuts versus cutting schools, things would fall apart easier. So it's very effective. But yeah, people don't know who the Ways and Means, the Budget Committee's chairs are anymore.
And how you saw this budget roll out last week is the playbook for the last several years, which is we roll it out on a Tuesday. We even got less information today. We knew there was a budget deal on a Tuesday, but they didn't even give us it. Wednesday morning, we finally got some details of the budget. They wanted it voted on by Friday.
And Howie, this isn't new. I remember she lied when Napolitano was governor.
Yes.
And we didn't. What'd she lie about? We don't even know what she's talking. I mean, these behind the door, backroom kind of things. This is the norm now, isn't it?
It's not only become the norm, but in some ways it's even worse this year. And I'll give you a perfect example. In the budget, there's about $25 million that the governor wanted to underwrite the borrowing costs for private charter school operators so they can refinance their bonds and therefore lower their costs. The governor promised in January to provide details. We are sitting here on the 13th of March and have yet to see the plan, yet it's in the budget. That's the kind of stuff that they're
rank
pulling.
and file, the caucuses, the Republican caucuses that run the show down there, they continue to elect leaders that do this. Andy Biggs and Cowan are not the first ones, but they continue to do this. They do not vote against these things in the end because of the process.
And they certainly don't fight it very hard.
No, they certainly don't fight it very hard. And in the end, but you don't see anybody asking them. If you go to candidate forums, questionnaires, nobody asks about the budget process and reforming that. It comes up after these things, and folks like us talk about it.
Let's talk about some of the whys behind it. And a lot of the whys more recently have become dark money. You have groups out there that are funding campaigns, that are sending out messages saying, we're watching you. And they know that comes the primary, where they have somebody more conservative put up by some group that's very nebulous, and they'll give them $30, $40, $50, $60,000. They don't want to be battling that in the primary. So the dark money process has tainted it, which is why you really only had two groups in support of the budget: the Goldwater Institute and Scott Musey's group, and that was it. That's it. Everyone else testified against it, but they were so scared of those folks.
Okay, we mentioned Carlisle Begay and a big factor that he was, and we've discussed Senator Begay before, and the idea that some see him as a plant, some see him as a Trojan horse, some say he's a Democrat and a dino or whatever you call it. This interesting.
Carlisle Begay has been a wild card since he was appointed to a seat that was vacated by Senator John Jackson back in mid-2013. He had a Gilbert address. Everyone assumed, and there's a lot of whispering that he was put up by Senate President Biggs, who's also from Gilbert. There was a challenge to his appointment, saying that, well, he didn't really live in Ganado on the Navajo Nation like he said, that he actually lived in Gilbert, and there were some papers that he filed for an appointment several months before that said, yeah, he lives in Gilbert. That said, last year I watched him very carefully, as I think some of us did, and there were just a couple of votes where he said, Biggs needs him on this one, and yes, he voted in that way.
Every time, huh?
Every time. And the same this year. I mean, I talked to him at length. He says, no, that's not the way it is. I'm protecting my district.
Well, and that becomes the issue. These became earmarks. And I know, for a bunch of Republicans who hate earmarks, including, our governor, somehow he got earmarks. They bought a vote. Now, is that fair? Sure. I mean, that's how budgets get done in Washington. That's how budgets get done here. But this one was sort of kind of blatant when it was literally the night of the budget. They're adding money.
Was his father rumored to be offered some sort of job as well?
I don't have, I mean, there was, the Republic asked him about that. I didn't do the reporting on that, and he denied it. There's a lot of whispering that goes down at the Capitol, especially when people, there's a rumor out there that he's going to challenge Representative Ann Kirkpatrick as a Republican. So I don't know what to believe.
Okay, with that in mind, we got to move off the budget here real quickly. How long does a session last, and have any divides, fissures broken up out of this, or is everyone just so happy to get out of there in early April or whenever they're going to do it?
I think that there's a feeling, okay, we got the budget behind us. We've got a few potential sticking points. We got to get those last gun bills out of here because Lord knows we haven't done enough of those. We've got some abortion bills. We're all waiting for the version of 1062 about discrimination against gays. Haven't seen it yet, but the amendments are possible. And then there are always little things that tend to slow the process up, things that nobody knows about, whether it's rental tax or something else, but there's always something that will blow up before the end of session.
I think we could get out of here before Easter possibly, but the real wild card for me is what's the governor going to do? The governor had a vague line just the other day, a week ago Friday, where he said, well, once we get the budget out, then I can focus on the more optimistic part of my agenda, which is education and economic development. Well, what does that mean? We do have to fill in the gaps, as Howie said, on that education funding for the charter school.
Would he consider gun bills to be the more optimistic
I'd
part of
say
his,
he'd probably like to avoid the gun bills overall. He wants to talk about economic development and growing the state's economy, which has been slow to come out of this. The job growth hasn't attracted the high-wage jobs. It's the traditional jobs that we've gotten in the past, the call centers, the back office, the warehouses, serving L.A. But I think this budget is reflective of who the people, the voters, have put in office. It's a very conservative governor, more conservative Senate president, and a conservative Republican caucus, and they run the show down there. And I think the people that are going to have the buyer's remorse are the business community because they put all their chips, on these tax cuts, and now they're looking to see it at universities and K-12, and those things are as important to training folks and attracting people to the state.
And I know I'm back on the budget again, and I hate, but the governor, like I said, on message. The other thing he says is that it protects the vulnerable. Well, if you look, they cut the general relief welfare maximum benefit from 24 months to 12 months. These are people who are, a lot of them are young mothers with babies, and they get $225 a month to buy diapers and food. That's it. Medicaid, a big cut to Medicaid. There's several of them that.
Well, and I want to talk about that gun bill because
Quickly,
this
please.
is interesting because the fact is, I think the governor, as you say, doesn't want it on his desk because it sends the wrong message to the business community. There were a bunch of lawmakers who would normally vote against it, and you know what they told me? They said, hey, he wants to be the hero. I'm going to vote for this thing. Let him take the heat.
Okay,
Let him take the heat
so
for this.
you got two bills. You got one for guns in public buildings, libraries, government offices, unless, of course, you spend $100,000 per entrance with security, armed guards, or metal detectors. You got another, which gets us into some kind of group that says you can't change anything.
Oh, you'll love this. The theory is, and this is another Bob Thorpe special brought to him by the Citizens Defense League, that says if we enter into a compact with at least one other state, we will agree that we cannot amend our laws, that the voters cannot amend our laws, that the voters cannot amend our Constitution if they want to put in, let's say, person-to-person transfer rules, background checks. Now, somehow it has escaped people, why would we want to tie our own hands when all we talk about is our sovereignty and yet we want to give it up to another state?
Does Governor Ducey sign those kinds of bills?
We don't know. He hasn't telegraphed it. I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah, he talks about, when I ask him about it, he says, well, I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, and I'll decide it when it gets to my desk.
As Governor Brewer did, but Governor Brewer vetoed the Guns in Public Buildings bill
No,
three
three
different
Different
times.
times, yes.
Yeah, I think he would veto, especially the public buildings one, because there's precedent for that. And I do think he thinks about the image, and I think those gun bills have as much impact on our image as 1070, as 1062, because people from the rest of the country see us talking about, legalizing silencers and sawed-off shotguns, and it sends a bad message.
But you don't understand. See, if we pass both of the bills, you can bring your guns to the library, but you have to use a silencer. They all work together, Mike.
It all makes
It's
sense.
cohesion.
Hey, I hate to do this because there's less than a minute to go here, but Victoria Steele, lawmaker Victoria Steele, very emotional announcement.
This was a bill dealing with abortion, some restrictions on insurance coverage and what doctors have to tell. And she came up and she talked about being molested as a child by her grandfather, who was a priest, and a very tearful testimony to say, why are we monkeying with the fact that abortions are legal? She talked about the fact, while she didn't get pregnant, this is the pre-Roe v. Wade, that other people did, they had botched abortions. And the very tearful testimony, Representative Kelly Townsend, who chairs the committee, said she was very sympathetic, and then they voted for the bills to further restrict abortion.
Didn't make any difference at
No.
all.
No, the abortion bill will pass and will go to the governor's desk on the 9th floor.
Still.
And
That testimony, though, that's
yeah, that testimony is key. Now, here's the context is,
real quickly. You know what? We got to stop you there. Let's stop you there because we're running out of time. Really good stuff. Good to have you all here. Thanks for joining us. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.